I've served in the Terran Outer Defense for 19 years, and in all that time only one thing has ever truly frightened me. The silence before a new species speaks. That moment when you don't know if they're going to offer a hand or open fire, but nothing, not war, not darkness, not the void, prepared me for the day I met the species that created silence itself. My name is Dalton Reyes. I was stationed on Sentinel Station 5, orbiting the quiet side of Gliese 412C. It wasn't a glamorous post. No pirates, no wormholes, no trade routes, just black sky and dead rock. The kind of assignment military brass uses to hide problems they don't want to admit exist. The problems began with the absence of problems. Every sensor ping returned nothing. Every energy sweep returned nothing. Every probe we launched simply stopped transmitting, as if drifting into sleep. And then the dream started. At first, it was just me. A voice whispering my name while my brain floated in the twilight space between consciousness and oblivion. A whisper made of static. A whisper that didn't come from inside my head. It came from the station walls. After 3 nights, the entire crew started hearing it. Not words, not language, just a feeling. A pressure in the skull, a presence in the silence. We reported it. Command dismissed it as stress. But stress doesn't make the stars blink in patterns. Stress doesn't make metal soften under your hands like warm clay. Stress doesn't make a 200-meter-long corridor disappear. I was walking down E deck when it happened. One blink I was surrounded by alloy and fluorescent lights. The next blink I was staring into an endless void filled with strands of shimmering threads, like someone had unraveled the fabric of space and left it floating. And there it was, a shape forming at the center of the threads. Not human, not alien, not alive, not dead, something between all of those. It wasn't physical. It was the absence of physical. A silhouette where matter refused to exist. I couldn't move. Couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. And then it spoke inside my skull. You are loud, not hostile. Just observant, I forced myself to whisper. Who are you? The threads tightened. We are the quiet. We consume contradiction. We correct disorder. My blood ran cold. What do you want? Your kind spreads noise. You create unpredictable paths. You disobey the symmetry. You must be resolved. Like a mistake. Humanity had survived wars, disasters, supernova bursts, political collapse, alien invasions, even the fracturing of a timeline once. But nothing had ever spoken with such calm finality. The quiet were not threatening us. They were diagnosing us, and humans don't react well to diagnosis. I stepped backward. We're not a mistake. The quiet pulsed. Your existence distorts probability, destabilizes futures, threatens balance. So, I said. It tilted its shifting head. You do not fear correction. We don't fear anything we can punch, I said. The quiet paused, confused, not by my words, but by the human emotion behind them. Fear, defiance, rage, hope. All tangled together. Humans are messy, chaotic, contradictory. To them, we weren't a species. We were a flaw. Before I could say another word, the thread snapped inward like a trap closing. Reality buckled. The corridor folded into an infinite point and exploded outward again. I was thrown onto the floor of the station, back in E deck. But the station wasn't the same. The walls were smooth. Too smooth. Like someone had erased the technology, the wiring, the texture. The quiet were resolving the station, returning it to a stable, silent state. My crewmates were screaming over comms. Bulkheads are vanishing. Deck C is gone, just gone. Something's rewriting the station. I sprinted. I didn't know where. Instinct took over. I reached the central command ring just in time to see it happen. A single quiet stood in the middle of the room, or hovered, or existed. Its shape thinning and widening with every breath the crew took. With every word we spoke, the quiet grew sharper. We should not have found you, it said. We didn't find you, I replied. You found us. That is the error. The quiet spread its arms, and the entire command ring warped. Screens flattening into blank walls. Consoles melting into smooth metal. It was erasing the world. Stop, I shouted. It turned its hollow face toward me. Give us your noise, it whispered. Something snapped in me, a survival instinct older than thought. We're not noise, I said. We're human. The quiet flickered. A glitch. As if the idea of human identity didn't fit anywhere in its structure. I took a step forward. You don't get to decide what we are, the quiet answered with silence so deep my ears ached. You are defiant. That's how we survive. You are unstable. That's how we win. You cannot win against silence. I clenched my fists. Watch us. The quiet lunged, not physically but conceptually. A wave of erasure swept toward me, rewriting the air itself. I leaped into it. Humanity's greatest strength has never been strength at all. It's the refusal to accept the fate handed to us. The wave hit me like ice. My memories flickered. My identity blurred. I felt myself unraveling, and that was when I weaponized the one thing no cosmic entity, no God, no universe had ever successfully predicted: the human mind. I thought of my mother, of my first school fight, of climbing a water tower at 16, of my first heartbreak, of the first time I almost died, of laughing so hard I cried, of crying so hard I laughed, of every contradiction that made me human. The quiet recoiled, threads spasming like snapped wires. You are disorder, it hissed. You're damn right we are, I said. The crew joined me, one by one, laughing, shouting, crying, thinking the loudest thoughts they could: love, hate, joy, despair, dreams, fears, memories, plans. The room exploded with human noise, not sound, but meaning, and the quiet screamed, not in pain, in confusion. We cannot resolve you. Good. You are not a mistake. We know. You are impossible. Welcome to humanity. The quiet dissolved into static threads and vanished. The station stabilized. Reality settled. The silence ended. We still don't know what the quiet were. Dimensional custodians, entropy shepherds, cosmic editors. But we do know one thing. They left because they couldn't understand us. Not our strength. Not our technology. Not our strategies. Our contradiction. Our chaos. Our emotion. Our will. Our fire. They couldn't resolve us because humans don't fit into any equation. We're not balance. We're not order. We're not silence. We are humanity, and humanity is the loudest idea the universe has ever heard. I thought defeating the quiet on Sentinel Station 5 would be the end of it. I thought we'd scared them off, driven them back into whatever dimension they came from. Proven humanity was too chaotic to resolve. For a few hours, I actually let myself believe we were done. But peace is fragile, and silence always comes back. We evacuated the station immediately after the quiet vanished. Command wanted every surviving crew member quarantined, checked for psychic contamination, checked for dimensional parasites, checked for being human, because apparently even we weren't sure what that meant anymore. They cleared us, mostly, but the scientists who studied the station debris weren't the same afterward. The first one stopped speaking entirely. The second one began whispering half-sentences into corners, like he was answering questions no one else could hear. The third one kept repeating the same phrase. They're still here. At the time, we figured it was trauma. But deep down, I knew better. The quiet weren't gone. They had simply changed their approach. They learned something from that encounter. Something dangerous. Something human, and 3 weeks later they returned. Not with warships. Not with threads of reality unraveling. They came back as silence. Silence that wasn't absence. Silence that listened. It started on Earth, always Earth, the birthplace of our noise. The first symptom was small. People losing words, not forgetting them, just unable to speak them. One man couldn't say hello. A woman forgot how to curse. A little girl couldn't tell her mother she was scared. Doctors shrugged at first. Hysteria, they said. Stress response, they said. Then entire communities fell silent overnight. No voices, no crying, no laughing. People moved. They breathed. They ate. But they said nothing, because the words weren't missing. The quiet had taken them. I was sent to one of the affected towns, a place called Briar Ridge, population 9,000. Moderate crime, quiet streets. The kind of town where people wave to strangers for no reason except habit. When I arrived, the streets were full of people. Hundreds of them, all standing outside, all staring upward at nothing, all silent. You don't understand how horrifying silence is until you meet 1,000 humans who refuse to speak. I approached a woman near the center of town, mid-30s, shaking violently but making no sound at all. I touched her shoulder. The instant I made contact, a whisper burst inside my skull so loud I dropped to my knees. Not yet. Not her voice. Not mine. The quiet's. The whisper retreated, pulling back like a tide leaving the shore. The woman blinked rapidly, tears streaming down her face, but her mouth stayed shut. She couldn't speak. The quiet had muzzled her and everyone else. The worst part? They weren't attacking us. This wasn't violence. This was examination, observation, correction. The quiet had identified the root of humanity's strength, our contradiction, our noise, our emotion, our ability to scream into the darkness and refuse to be quieted. So what did they do? They took the noise, and that was just the beginning. For the first time in my life, I felt fear that didn't come from danger, but from understanding. Earth wasn't being invaded. It was being tested, studied, opened, and the quiet were learning. I returned to command with whatever scraps of information I could gather. The room filled with admirals, ambassadors, scientists, all looking at me as if I held a cure to a disease they didn't understand. I told them the truth. The quiet don't hate us. They don't fear us. They don't even want to kill us. So what do they want? An admiral asked. I swallowed. To know why humans make noise. The room went silent. Even the hum of the lights seemed to stop. What kind of noise? Another voice asked. All of it, I whispered. Words, music, rage, hope, laughter, language, emotion. They want to understand. Humanity. A scientist at the far end of the table leaned forward. That sounds like diplomacy. I shook my head. No, diplomacy shares ideas. This is different. They're not asking us to teach them. They're trying to rewrite us into quietness. The air in the room chilled. They want to correct us. I finished. For a full minute, no one spoke. Then the alarm sounded. The quiet didn't wait for our verdict. They arrived, not as shapes, not as threads, not as echoes of unbuilt geometry. They came as silence, a wave, a ripple, a hush so powerful it crossed oceans and crushed sound itself. Sirens died mid-blare. Engines sputtered and fell silent. Skyscraper windows vibrated until they cracked. People dropped to their knees, clutching their throats as the ability to speak vanished. Earth went quiet, completely. And the quiet finally revealed themselves, not in form, but in question. A whisper broke through the universal silence. What are you? Not demanding, confused. What are you? As if humanity was a riddle, a contradiction they couldn't solve, a mistake they couldn't correct. I staggered through the chaos, unable to speak, unable to hear anything except the quiet's whisper inside my skull. What are you? I didn't know how to answer. I couldn't answer. My thoughts blurred. My identity wavered. My memories flickered. The quiet were not erasing us. They were stripping everything away that wasn't the core truth. Who am I? What am I? What is human? In the suffocating silence, I felt myself slipping, until something ignited in me, a memory. A small, stupid memory. My grandmother singing badly off key while cooking breakfast. Noise. Real, human, imperfect noise. I held on to that memory like a rope in darkness, and the quiet's whisper sharpened. You resist. I pushed harder, pulling up more memories, arguing with my brother over the last cookie, laughing with a friend until tears blurred my vision, shouting at a storm, screaming during a fall, whispering secrets, crying into my pillow, singing wrong lyrics into a hairbrush, cursing the universe, begging for help, begging to be left alone. Noise, my noise, human noise. The quiet recoiled. They couldn't understand. They couldn't process it. We do not understand your contradiction, they said. Good. I reached inside myself and did the most human thing possible. Screamed, not with my voice, that had been stolen, but with my mind, a raw, primal, chaotic blast of will and emotion, a scream of everything human. The silence cracked. Across earth, people gasped. The quiet's grip faltered. Emotions poured out of humanity like a flood. Laughter, terror, rage, joy, sorrow, a storm of contradiction, and the quiet. The beings who created silence, who consumed contradiction, who corrected disorder. They broke, their whisper trembled. We cannot resolve you. Then, softer, almost like awe. You are impossible. The silence shattered. Sound returned. Voices screamed. Engines roared. Sirens wailed. Earth awakened. The quiet retreated, not defeated, but overwhelmed. Before they vanished completely, I heard one final whisper. We will return. When we understand. I stood in the middle of a ruined street, chest heaving, ears ringing, surrounded by people crying, shouting, laughing, human noise. We had won, not by strength, not by power, not by strategy, but by being irrevocably, impossibly human. And somewhere in the dark between dimensions, the quiet were listening, not to erase us, to learn why we don't fit into their equations, why we break their logic, why we refuse to be corrected, why we make noise, and why the universe needs it. When the quiet disappeared the second time, the world tried to celebrate. People flooded the streets, clinging to each other, shouting just to hear themselves shout. News anchors cried live on broadcasts. Musicians played until their fingers bled. Children screamed for fun. Humanity was drunk on sound, terrified of silence, desperate to fill every empty space with noise, any noise. But victory has a peculiar flavor. It tastes like joy on the surface, and fear in the aftertaste, because everyone knew the same truth. They will come back. Not because they hate us, not because they want to rule us, but because humans are the only thing in existence they cannot understand. We didn't defeat the quiet. We confused them. And nothing is more dangerous than something unimaginably powerful trying to solve a puzzle. When the puzzle is us. It started 3 months after their retreat. Small things, heartbreaking things, a toddler laughing in a grocery store, and suddenly freezing, as if waiting for permission to continue. A man at a bar telling a joke, and then losing the ability to remember why it was funny. A woman singing to herself in the shower, and hearing another voice hum along from behind the tiles. Not malicious, not violent, just copies, etiquette, observation. The quiet were practicing. They were learning how to be human. They didn't know the meaning of the words yet, but they were learning the shape of them. And then, they made their first mistake. They imitated a scream. It happened in an apartment building downtown. A woman was arguing with her partner, tension boiling, voices rising, emotions raw. She screamed, frustration, hurt, fear, just a normal human scream. The kind you let out when life breaks in half. But something screamed with her, a perfect copy. No emotion, no tremble, no pain, just a duplicate sound, identical in pitch and tone, echoing from every vent, every wall, every outlet. The couple fell silent instantly. The building fell silent. The city did. That was the day we realized the quiet weren't just listening. They were rehearsing. You don't rehearse something unless you plan to use it. Command called me back to duty the next morning, not because I understood the quiet, but because I was the only one who'd ever made them stop. My noise, my contradiction, my chaotic humanity had disrupted their logic. I didn't want to be special, but it didn't matter what I wanted. Apparently, the quiet wanted me. It began the moment I arrived at command. The lights flickered. The temperature dropped. The air became thick, too thick, like sound waves were being smothered before they could form. The quiet were there. Inside the walls, inside the systems, inside the silence, a whisper rippled through the room, one voice, then another, then hundreds, all layered, all perfect copies of my team members. Dalton Reyes, they said. You resist. Teach us. Teach them. The quiet didn't want to erase us anymore. They wanted to become us. Someone behind me muttered, "This is good, right?" They want to learn. I shook my head. No, they don't want to learn humanity. They want to resolve humanity by understanding the root of our contradiction. For what? Someone asked. And that's when the lights died. Darkness swallowed the room. A single voice, my own voice, spoke from behind me. To remove the flaw. A cold wave shot down my spine. They weren't learning to understand us. They were learning to replace us. To build a version of humanity that wasn't dangerous or unpredictable or wild. A quiet humanity, a corrected humanity. The darkness shifted, flexing like a muscle reflex. When the lights flickered back on, a shape stood in the middle of the room. It looked human. It wore clothes. It had skin. It had eyes, but it wasn't human. Its face didn't move right. Its eyes didn't blink. Its chest didn't rise when it breathed. Its presence didn't take up space the way a living thing does. Quiet imitation, a prototype. It tilted its head exactly 15 degrees. The same tilt the quiet used when trying to understand noise. Hello? Dalton Reyes, it said, copying my voice. Please teach us how to be you. Nobody in that room breathed. I forced myself to step forward, heart pounding so hard it hurt. What happens if you succeed? I asked. The imitation smiled. A perfect imitation. Too perfect. The smile of something that studied emotion but never felt it. If we succeed, it said, we will replace you. You will not suffer. You will not resist. You will be quiet. We will carry your concept forward more perfectly than you do. In that moment, humanity's greatest fear became real. An enemy not trying to kill us, just replace us with a better version, a version without chaos, without contradiction, without free will, a version without noise. I took a deep breath. You don't understand what makes a human. We will, the imitation replied. Noise is the key. I shook my head slowly. No, it's not. The imitation paused, slightly glitching. We have studied your patterns, your emotions, your contradictions. No, I said again. You studied the surface, but you missed the core. The quiet imitation leaned forward. Explain, I swallowed hard. I didn't know if this would work. I didn't know if it would save us or destroy us, or provoke something far worse. But humanity has one card no one else plays. We gamble on ourselves. So I walked right up to the imitation, close enough to see the shimmer of non-reality beneath its skin, and said quietly, Noise isn't what makes us human. It stared at me without blinking. What does? Choice. For the first time, the imitation hesitated. Actually hesitated. Not a glitch. Not a calculation. A pause born of confusion. You choose? It asked. I nodded. Yes, we choose everything. We choose when to scream, when to love, when to fight, when to cry, when to hate, when to forgive, when to destroy, when to build. We choose who we are, every minute, every day. The imitation flickered. This is disorder. That's humanity, I said. The room vibrated. Lights stuttered. The air got heavier. The quiet didn't like the answer. We do not understand, the imitation said. You're not supposed to. The lights went out again. Silence began crushing the air. Then a whisper filled the darkness. Not one voice, but thousands. You are unresolvable. You cannot be modeled. You cannot be replaced. You are dangerous. Then you are necessary. The light snapped back on. The imitation was gone. Every trace of the quiet vanished with it, but their final whisper remained, echoing in my skull. We will return. Not to replace you, to learn how you survive. Humanity had earned something terrifying, something priceless. Curiosity. The quiet would be back. Not as conquerors, not as imitators, as students. And that might be the most dangerous thing of all. Because the moment something unimaginably powerful tries to learn humanity, really learn it, the universe is never the same again, and neither are we.